you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jada Bell podcast. This is episode 3. I'm so excited. I think I've been doing really good. I've been posting every single week, getting you guys an upload, and I want to dive more into self control with this episode. My last episode, I was kind of getting into the anxious and avoidant topic and a little bit about just narcissism and my thoughts on narcissism, narcissistic traits. Since I've last posted, there was a couple of things. One kind of went viral, got like 2 million views. I want to dissect a little bit more into what it's like to be in a relationship with someone that lacks self control. I had an episode in season 1 that a lot of people loved, and it said women with narcissistic traits, BPD, emotional just tantrums, whatever. I don't remember what I titled it specifically, but I just remember I posted a video like that, and a lot of people commented, a lot of people gained a lot of clarity, a lot of men specifically gained a lot of clarity because they would DM me and message me and say, "Oh, I had a woman who actually had all of this, and if I had more knowledge, maybe I would have known better how to deal with it, better how to help her." Um, and I think that was a really healing episode for a lot of people. And when I say healing for a lot of people realize that a lot of the things that happen in the relationship had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with the other person, their upbringing. They were in this fight or flight mode. They were having a hard time just regulating their own emotions. And they also viewed their partner as an enemy as well. We're going to get into that today and just talk about like the power of emotions and the power of having a lack of self-control. When you lack self-control, you can be the ugliest version of yourself. There's no real pretty picture to put it, I posted a video talking about that I was physical. There was times where I was physical, I pushed, I shoved, I slapped, and that's something that I deeply regret, and I hate that I did that, but, that's just, like, the truth of the matter of someone that's having a hard time with their emotions, and they actually have really extreme reactions out of their emotions, and they haven't healed or taken accountability or, recognized within themselves that they have some work to do, and they have to learn how to have emotional discipline. So we're gonna talk about that. My whole series has been about the fruit of the spirit. I'm really excited though because guys, I already filmed episode 4. I filmed episode 4 and I'm so excited to bring that guest on. Everything that that guest talked about was amazing. It's talking about femininity and masculinity and I know that that's what my audience loves and wants. So I cannot wait for you guys to see that episode. But let's just dive deep into self-control with this episode and why that is a part of the fruit of the spirit and why really needs us to have a lot of self-control. So if you're struggling with BPD or you're in a relationship with someone with BPD, borderline personality disorder, or just having some of the traits of it. We're going to even dive into that, having some of the traits of it, just lack of self control and um, emotional immaturity. We're going to just talk about how that impacts a relationship, how it impacts communication, and why God it really needs us to have self control. Let's get into prayer real quick, you guys. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everything that you have provided for me so that I could do this for other people, so that I can talk to other people, so that I can be used as a vessel, God. And I just thank you so much for getting me out of some of the storms I was in, some of the most broken seasons that I was in. Thank you for healing me, God, in so many ways and just giving me comfort. Teaching me. I know some moments that I've had were really crushing. They hurt a lot, but I see now how you worked that for my good and just thank you for giving me this platform. This is all you. The fact that I have almost 200,000 people watching me from season 1, the fact that I have listeners and people on Spotify and Apple and all these people listening to tune in. I now see that those broken seasons that I was in was for times like this to help other people. So I just pray, God, you continuously use me, and I pray this episode just blesses somebody else's relationship or just themselves, God. It's just a miserable place to live in when we don't have some control over our emotions. So I just pray that you bless me with wisdom today, and may the Holy Spirit just speak through me and bless somebody else. In Jesus' name I pray. I love you. Amen. Okay, so let's get into it. I got my notes, guys. If you remember from season 1, I always had my notes so I could be a little bit more structured with everything that I'm saying. So I want to kind of talk about my testimony a little bit with having a lack of self control with my emotions. So I have explained this on my platform so many times, but we're just gonna get into it again. And honestly, you can go back and watch the episode I did with Kelly Sweet. It's pinned in my Instagram. It's pinned. It's the first one pinned where I talked about how a narcissist thinks, where she was interviewing me and I was just really elaborating on my story, on my testimony a little bit. So go watch that. But just to give it to people that maybe haven't heard my testimony, is that I literally broke down my household with my emotions before and just struggling with just mental health. Now, the thing about that though is when I was in it, so when I got married is when everything heightened. I already was struggling with mental health and now realizing it kind of badly before marriage, but in marriage it was really, really heightened. Um, I was triggered, I was easily triggered all the time. I reacted really bad off of those triggers. I also thought that my husband was my enemy in a lot of ways because he was the one triggering me. Like things that he would say or things that he would do would trigger me, and I would have this like explosiveness. The better way to explain it is that like my emotions, like some people they can rationalize how they feel. So they can feel some type of way and maybe it hurts what you're feeling, but you can try to rationalize it. Okay, that hurt me. I didn't like the way you said this, and that, or you could have said that differently or better, or they're able to just rationalize their emotions. They can have a sad moment, but they can also get out of that sad moment because they can kind of sit and dwell on it and think, okay, what do I want to take very seriously and what isn't that serious? What can I work through within myself? And that comes from maybe how you grew up. Maybe you had a parent that helped teach you that, how to actually work through your emotions. Um, maybe you just didn't have, like, PTSD from your childhood. A lot of people that have a hard time with their emotions is due to their childhood upbringing. Their parents either, heavily criticized them or would leave or withdraw their love from them if they ever disapproved of something, so they have just this, unhealthy fear of losing someone, or someone taking their love away from them, or they have, just really bad attachment issues, or also what it can tend to be is that you're trying to prove that like if you work hard enough and you do the most then you can earn love, and therefore whenever someone shows their disapproval of you or criticism against you, you feel like you failed yourself and that you're unworthy, and that could be your childhood upbringing too. So there's just going back because I kind of got all over the place with that, but that's where people can struggle with their emotions, and BPD and things like this end up coming onto a person. So when I got married is when it really, really heightened for me, got really extreme for me because now I'm in a household with someone. What happened was I was able to now identify like this is someone who, if I were to lose them, it would cause me a lot of pain. A question, a question I get quite often that people ask is because they suffered like abuse being with someone that struggled with their emotion. They did have to deal with the abuse that came with that. And so they'll be like, "Oh, the person never loved me. If they loved me, they wouldn't have treated me this way." What's really interesting is when struggling with my emotions, although my actions did not show love at all, I actually really was terrified of the person, of my spouse, because he could hurt me a lot because I did love him so deeply. Maybe that love was an idolization though, in a lot of ways, but I loved him so deeply that if you took your love away from me, that would leave me so deeply scarred and would be so excruciatingly painful, and therefore I would try to control it. I also was really hard on myself because yes, whenever there was criticism, I'm beating myself down because I think that that means I'm unworthy of your love, and therefore if I'm unworthy of your love, you're gonna leave me. So there's an abandonment there, and there's a fear of abandonment that was going on that caused these triggers in my emotions to expand the way they did. Um, Another thing was there was a couple of times where I really saw how bad it could get, like my emotions, how bad my emotions could get when my husband did leave or when there was issues in the relationship. For example, there was one time where me and my husband did get into an argument. And this is where it really heightened for me. We got into an argument one night and he didn't come back home. He stayed the night at a hotel room, but I didn't know any of those things. I didn't know he stayed in that hotel room. I didn't know he was nearby. I didn't know he was just trying to cool off. I didn't know anything. So when he did never came back home, I was being tormented all night long with thoughts of he's never gonna come back. He's gone, right? That set me into just ultra like triggered. I was having panic attacks, like, oh my gosh, like he left, he's gone, it's over. And therefore, like, all night long, I was just sobbing and sobbing, sobbing, and when he got back home, I was so angry at him. I was so angry at him. I remember he came back home, we didn't talk for, like, 3 days. I was so mad at him, and I became quite abusive verbally and physically that time and moving forward at other times where I got triggered, that he could, like, walk out the house now, and he could, like, not come back home because that was the first time he didn't come back home, like, he left and he didn't come back home, right? For the night. And so now when we got into an argument and he would leave, I would think, "Oh my gosh, what if you go to a hotel room or what if you leave or you don't come back or I won't know how long it will be till you get back." So that started to heighten the reactions. And once again, that all is being rooted back to my fear of abandonment. I had a really bad fear of abandonment. So I would try to control him more. When he would try to leave, that's when the control would get worse because if I can keep you inside the house, then I don't actually have to have a fear that like of that happening, like you could leave for this amount of time, you won't come back, whatever. So that's kind of the basis. I mean, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. We separated. Um, I had kicked him out. I thought he was the enemy. I was being triggered. That's a whole nother story. Maybe get into another time. But I thought he was the enemy, and therefore I kicked him out one day. I thought he would come back. Maybe this was my sense of, like, trying to feel like some control, like, "I don't need you," because I was so hyper hypersensitive and always scared of him leaving me, and I felt like because I was scared of him leaving me, in some way he must be abusing me to have these fears implemented in me, and if only he just, like, wouldn't walk out the room or wouldn't leave, wouldn't do these things, I wouldn't feel so triggered. So, the thing is what I was trying to do was get him to abide and, like, obey my triggers. Let me better explain that actually, because it's not even obey my triggers. Don't trigger me. I became quite controlling because I thought that if I can control you triggering me, then we can have a healthy relationship. So every time I'm feeling triggered, it got flipped onto like, you're making me feel this way, stop making me feel this way. And instead of understanding that that's not the way to get to a healthy relationship, the way to get to a healthy relationship is that I have to work on not having these triggers. I have to unplug my triggers and realize where they're coming from, why I'm doing what I'm doing, have a build self-awareness, and then hold myself accountable for how I react no matter how I feel. So that's where I went to therapy and I learned how to do that. What a lot of people are doing, what I did, and it's what made me much worse. I had so many triggers back then that's kind of making somebody live it is making somebody live on eggshells consistently. So what some people know is that we ended up being separated. I went to therapy. I went to therapy and I was diagnosed. I was also evaluated, and I shared so much with my therapist at the time about how I'm feeling and all of my emotions and why I did what I did and why the way I think and what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, all this stuff. And so after that evaluation, she had diagnosed me with BPD, borderline personality disorder. It's the first time I've ever heard of that before. I never even really, like, dived deep into mental health issues. I knew that there was something wrong with me, like, I did, because when I was sitting there after going into a separation, I had a few conversations, one being, like, my sister and then my couple of my friends, and, they were, like, holding me more accountable, but I was like, "Guys, but that's how I feel," but some people were coming about it a little bit more logically, especially being married, which is why it's so important. You wanna be surrounded by people that value marriage. We're trying to think for both parties. So I was deeply confused. I knew that I played a part. I just didn't know what part I played. I was quite naive. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was a very ignorant person, and I just didn't have any self-awareness, and I could not hold myself accountable for nothing. Like, it was always about my emotions, how I felt, and that dictated what I did and what I thought, right? So I went to therapy. I knew that there was something wrong with then when she diagnosed me with borderline is when I really dove deep into borderline and trying to understand it a lot more and then realizing, whoa, I have these traits. And I just kind of want to break it down for you guys what borderline looks like in a woman, what a relationship with somebody who's struggling with borderline looks like, and then for the person with borderline, what how you're affecting your partner and your relationship by not managing your emotions and having some self-awareness. So not only was I diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but she also diagnosed me with paranoid schizophrenia. Mind you, paranoia and schizophrenia can honestly be one of the symptoms of borderline. So I want to talk to you about the traits of borderline personality disorder in itself. I kind of broke it down in season one, but I want to just dive a little bit more deeper into some of these traits. Now, mind you, you can have some of these traits that doesn't necessarily mean that you have borderline, and you should go get diagnosed and evaluated first before claiming you have something, right? You want to go to a psychologist because you could be struggling with your emotions and not be borderline. Might not have a personality disorder. Honestly, too, with personality disorder, you definitely can be healed. You can have a secure attachment style. You can work towards all those things. It's really hard. You have to hold yourself accountable and be very disciplined. Like for me, I would discipline my flesh. I'm spiritual. I'm talking about God here. I realized that I didn't have no spiritual discipline, um, so I fasted a lot. I disciplined myself when I reacted bad. I literally had a discipline. Like when you go to the military, and if you're not in alignment with what everybody else is doing, you have to run extra laps around everybody and stuff. That's what I was doing. I went into like military mode. Um, I made myself run the extra laps whenever I stepped out of line. I punished myself, essentially, and it trained my brain that there was gonna be consequences when I would react in a way that's unnecessary, that is extreme, impulsive, or, what I'm about to read to you guys, I literally would punish myself, so I became the parent to myself. So for people that ask, "Can it be healed? Can it be fixed?" Absolutely, yes, but it's up to the person how bad they wanna be fixed. I did not want to, whether God blessed me to still enjoy my marriage or not. I did not want to carry that out for the rest of my life. I didn't want to carry that out into like a new marriage. If God ever blessed me with a new marriage, it'd have to be God willing, not on my own terms, but God willing. Also, except if I had to be alone, like maybe marriage isn't for me. Like I was pretty screwed up in some ways in my younger age dealing with my marriage, physically and verbally. I wasn't the best. So if I don't get blessed with another marriage, if that doesn't happen, then I'll be content with the Lord. I became content with things, which is also important, important part of the process. But I healed myself because I so badly wanted that. And it didn't matter if my husband wanted me back or not. I wanted it for myself. Like I really wanted um God to be proud of me. He was a motivating factor for me a lot, like, my marriage coming back together was a motivating factor, but regardless, I just didn't wanna be living and suffering with my emotions. So going back, here are some of the traits of someone with BPD. You tend to have a unorganized attachment style, so you're, like, avoidant and anxious, which I definitely was. I would push away, I didn't wanna deal. Then there was times I would get really anxious, so it's just very unorganized and all over the place. Mood swings and irritability and anger. So I kind of talked about this quite often, but yes, you have mood swings and your mood swings shift throughout the day. Now, this can be mistaken for bipolar disorder. I talked about this before because sometimes people say, "Oh, you're a bipolar." I was not bipolar at all. Bipolar is like long periods of like depression. And in the middle, you can be a completely normal person, and then you'll have another season of like mania. So you're all happy, or manic, I'm sorry, manic, and you're all happy, and you're like the best feeling ever in your life, so you go in long states of this. Borderline, and you're extreme. Borderline is extreme mood shifts throughout the day. It can literally happen in the same hour. It can go from really sad to really happy in the same hour. So I had mood swings, irritability, and anger. I would get really angry and irritable. There would be things that I would hear that would just make me mad or just take me back to like my childhood or certain traumatic events for me. And so I would just snap and I would be mad and I would hold the person responsible, I'd hold my spouse responsible to fix how I felt too. Fear of abandonment, I kind of already shared with you guys about the fear of abandonment, self harm, and suicidal attempts. Now, for me, I didn't, yeah, I did. What am I saying? I actually did attempt I actually did attempt suicide one time. That was extreme. I did. But I'm more so I think one time I know this is a regular thing maybe for so can be a very common thing for someone with BPD, um, that threatens suicide if they feel like you're gonna leave. So because of your fear of abandonment, you threaten like, "I'll kill myself," right? Um, I think one time I, like, hinted at that, like, "Okay, well, then I'm just gonna go lock myself in the bathroom and you'll never see me again." I think I said something like that one time, but I never threatened to kill myself in my relationship. Before my marriage, there was one time where I was just having such a hard time with my emotions that I just wanted out. Like I was just so miserable with my emotions. They were just so um either a really low or high, and so I did try to commit, and that's a whole nother conversation, but it being a lot more stable now, I realized I didn't have a sense of identity. I was chasing after, money or temporary things or dopamine. When you chase after dopamine all the time and it's constantly like a fleeting thing, like dopamine just comes and then it goes, or you've depleted yourself of dopamine because you've overstimulated yourself with all these things like porn and stuff. Whatever you're doing, um, you just feel depression. You feel depressed, you feel like nothing's exciting anymore, nothing's good, and nothing sticks and stays. No happiness sticks and stays. So I was definitely fighting with those emotions, and it led me to have like thoughts of like there was no point anymore. So that definitely happened. But this is actually a common trait with people with BPD that they'll threaten to kill themselves if you try to leave because of their fear of abandonment. They'll feel like if you leave, their whole identity is gone. Like you're taking me with you. So therefore I'm not gonna live. Um Unstable and intense relationships. So you get into a relationship very quickly. Tends to be like three to 6 months before there's chaos. There's a lot of arguing, there's a lot of drama. Um Impulsive behaviors. So I read it and I learned that people with BPD could like have a lot of unprotected sex. So if you look at someone that's constantly just having that type of risky behavior, like always having sex without condom, they're just never thinking. They're just moving off of straight emotion. Once again, trying to get dopamine released, so they could feel good and feel happy. Because I remember always trying to get out of the state of negativity. Um, that could be an indicator that they have a personality disorder. Mine wasn't that, obviously. Um, Mine was, shopping, which is not very commonly talked about. I would shop a lot. I spent a lot of money, an unrealistic amount too, and I was quite a hoarder as well. So I'd keep things, and I feel like they have a lot of sentimental value because I was always trying to buy things to fill up the space and the emptiness I felt. So that's what made me feel good. So impulsive behaviors, black and white thinking, and so you're seeing people or situations as either perfect or terrible. So yes, that's the low lows and the high highs. So when you're getting triggered, or let's say that you're having some type of tension with a friend, you guys are getting into it. You'll see this person, oh, they're the worst person ever. They're the worst person for me. I can't believe you. Or you're in your relationship, you're with your spouse, and you're thinking, when they trigger you, oh my gosh, you don't love me, you never loved me, we shouldn't be in this relationship, we're not compatible, we're just not for each other, I just will be happier somewhere else, you'll be happier somewhere else. Like that's literally your mind thought and your way of thinking. And really they just didn't like mm, care to give you a hug when they came home. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how extreme it can be, and your reactions are very extreme. Or you feel like everything's perfect. So I remember that used to like irritate my husband. Just I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. You're the best husband ever." And he'll be like, "Literally, like an hour ago, you were saying that you weren't happy in this relationship." So that would be really irritating because it's the inconsistency. You have to be consistent with what you're saying. If you don't like me, stand on it. If you like me, stand on that. If you don't like me in this moment, just say, "Hey, right now you got on my nerves." But I was just being extreme and thinking that we should just end the relationship. So that's like BPD. Paranoia and suspiciousness, so this is what I was talking about, the schizophrenia. I had that really, really bad. So I had the mood swings, fear of abandonment, unstable and intense relationships, impulsive behaviors, black and white thinking, paranoia and suspiciousness. I had that as well. Um, Very, very paranoid. My thoughts were pretty extreme. That's a whole nother conversation and discussion though, because what I was hearing was different than what was being said to me. And also, I had moments of actually seeing or hearing things. It was more hearing things because I didn't see things that weren't there. It's just that what I was hearing was making the illusion of what I'm seeing is more extreme or intense than what was really going on. Does that make sense? So that's what I was having. The next one is disassociation or feeling detached. So I actually heard from this therapist because I had this thing where I would talk at times like I was 10 years old. Don't know why, don't know where that came from, but I would talk like I was a 10-year-old girl, and I would disassociate from being a grown woman to a little kid. And I remember there was a couple of times where my husband would look at me and be like, "It's cute, but you're a grown woman," or he'll look at me and be like, "It's like your whole body thinks that you're 10." It's like you went from this to thinking that like your whole body and everything about you is like a 10-year-old girl. It's really interesting because that's like split personality disorder, right? Um, I don't know where that came from. I remember my healing process though. I won't even lie to you guys. My healing process was really spiritual because I remember I would hear this little 10-year-old girl. I keep saying 10 years old, but it was a little girl. I would hear this little girl's voice in my head when I was by myself and alone now, going through the healing process. I would hear her voice and I told her, like, "I'm a grown woman, like, you have to go." And then I started crying because I would just hear the voice like, "No, like, no, 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 like, I wanna be here," you know? And I would just say, "You can't. I don't know who you are." And that's really deep, that's a whole 'nother discussion. But I'll be like, "I don't know who you are, little girl." Maybe it was me and my 10-year-old self, but I was actually having a full conversation with her, um, in my room. I was like, "You have to go." 'Cause at the time, I think I was 23, 24. I was like, "You're a grown adult, and things that you are doing is causing me to not have a healthy relationship, not just in my marriage, but with myself, because I keep moving and operating out of you as a 10-year-old girl, and I have to grow up. I have to grow up. Your behaviors and what you're doing is not excusable because 'cause you're so grown. You're so much older than what you're pretending you are or what you're thinking you are." So, I did have a lot of that disassociated and feeling detached, but it was mainly like this split personality I would go into. Really crazy. Next was chronic feelings of emptiness, um, which that goes into being impulsive as well. When you're feeling chronic feelings of emptiness, you go into impulsive behaviors to try to fill that up, fill that space up. And then you have trouble empathizing. So, it wasn't that I was like I didn't lack empathy because I could cry, I could feel very bad about my decisions and what I'm doing, but I couldn't walk in the other person's shoes, like, I couldn't step into his shoes and how he felt. It was my emotions were on a pedestal, and I'm hyper focused on my emotions and how I feel, and I need to get out of how I feel before I can ever come and try to think about how you're feeling. And if how you're feeling honestly is even triggering and affecting me because I'm feeling bad about myself now because of your emotions, then we're just focused back on my emotions. So that you can just almost imagine just how toxic that is. And then unstable identity confusion, which I feel like is the whole baseline for someone that's dealing with either like a narcissistic personality disorder or BPD. That's how they overlap right there, right? You're not a narcissist, and it kind of talks about this in another video, but you're not a narcissist, but you are struggling with just not having a lot of empathy for another person just because your emotions are magnified and because you don't have a sense of identity. If you don't know who you are, you're going to struggle so much with being able to hear criticism from another person. So, I kind of talked about all of this before, but just for another episode, I just wanted to get into how all of these traits besides one I had. There's 9 traits I believe that are the primary ones. And when you go, if you get evaluated, because you're thinking maybe I might have this, if you'll get evaluated, they will go through the 9 traits. And if you're diagnosed with 5 of them, you have BPD. So that's something you have to have at least 5 of them. I wouldn't have known how much I was struggling until I think I got into that relationship. So I will say that my marriage did help me so much to evolve into the woman I am today. I'm so grateful for it. Um, it has been probably one of the most painful experiences of my life, but like I said, I'm very grateful for it because I don't think I would be this woman today. Powering I honestly, truthfully, I don't wanna, like, have marriages split up or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to do at all when I state this, but I needed that I needed that year by myself so bad. You know, people with borderline, they do better and they function better when they're alone, which is why they're always trying to push people away because of all of the triggers. But if you can be by yourself for a period of time, if you're struggling with your emotions, and work on unplugging those things little by little, maybe not rushing so much into, like, living in the house with your partner, but going on dates and things like that and still being with each other and seeing each other, but just doing little by little work and going to therapy and working on your communication skills in DBT so that you can kind of get out of this hyper state you're in so you're not getting worse and you're abusing your partner because you cannot regulate your emotions. So you can kind of be out of it, work on it, and then kind of come in and do like practice runs of dealing with conflict and testing and pushing yourself to like communicate better and not react the same way. That was like the best thing for me, man. It made me a whole different person just having that year to myself. And also learning my identity. So like being in a relationship before I got to be stronger with Christ because he was still a believer and I wasn't. And we came together and he taught me everything. He taught me the Bible, he taught me everything from scratch. I didn't like gain my own identity in Christ until I was kind of alone, for that year. I learned who I was, I learned what a wife means, and I actually wanted that for myself. That's another thing, you have to want these things for yourself. The person with BPD has to want it for themselves. I wanted a relationship with Christ by myself. I wanted to know who I am in Christ. I wanted to know what Christ says about me. I wanted to learn these things for myself. I learned everything from my husband, so I was so dependent on my husband and what he thought about me, his validation and his love for me to love myself, truthfully. So that year, like I said, was really, really helpful. I think if you're really struggling, I mean, you're really struggling really bad and your relationship's really toxic, I think the person that's with somebody with BPD, you also have to learn how to like let them go in a way and have a season of separation. Or there might be like a lot of scary thoughts of, oh, what if with their BPD, if I'm gone, they go sleep with someone else. If they do that, that's just sad. Like you have to be there for them not to go sleep with someone else. I don't know what to say. I have BPD bad. I had all these traits and I ain't go sleep with nobody. You know what I'm saying? Um, I had BPD really bad and I could try to control those parts of me. So you staying there is what's keeping them from behaving really bad. You're also having this like savior complex and you also think you have to save them from themselves. And I think they have to, if you leave, they have to learn how to have self control and self discipline. Like I said, I'm not trying to push people to separate and leave, but I'm just saying if your relationship's really toxic and it got to that level, um, in order for someone to learn how to do something, they have to learn how to do it by themselves, right? So being alone was good for me. It was really good for me. It changed me so much. I had so much time to change. I had so much time to practice things. Being alone wasn't just good for me because I was alone and there wasn't someone triggering me, by the way. Being alone helped me to like being alone. Because when you don't like being alone and you're afraid of abandonment is when you become controlling. So when I was alone, I learned how to like my own presence. That's so important for the one with BPD too. Someone's struggling so much with the fear of abandonment. You have to learn how to like being alone so that you won't be hyper sensitive to criticism and someone leaving you and hyper alert. No, when I spent a year by myself, well, now I'm fine now, aren't I? I spent a year by myself. I think I'm fine. I think I'll be fine if you don't come home tonight or if you're gone for a week, out of town or you want to spend time with your boys. I think I'll be fine. And that was important for me. For the person who is in the relationship though, The last thing I wanna say, and then I'm gonna just read an email, is that if you're struggling with having, like, unforgiveness for the person that struggles with the personality disorder, you're really angry. I don't know how else to explain this. I remember saying this to my husband. I said, I wish I could take away from you taking it so personally because there is nothing that you could say to me and I don't already feel worse about it. You living in this state of hell for yourself because you're mad at me. I lived in hell. I was the one living in hell, truthfully, you know? So, although I attacked him in a lot of ways, although I attacked him, I I hated living. Like, every single day living in that state of mind was excruciatingly painful, you guys. Someone with BPD that is watching this right now, someone that's struggling so bad with their emotions, they live in hell. You think I want to be like that? You think that after I remember one time I got so irritated, I got so triggered. I'm being honest and raw here with y'all. I got so angry that he had tacos. He had a plate and he had tacos. I got so angry at him because I was triggered that I went and smacked the tacos out his hand. Guess who had to clean it up? Me. Guess who had taco all up in her hair? Me. Guess who looking at me like, well now, look at you. You gotta clean up the mess you done made. And that's literally what happened in its entirety. I have to clean up the mess that I made out of my emotions. Not just in this actual situation, but in its entirety of my relationship. You think I don't feel stupid? I'm gonna act like it, but I constantly am making messes out of my emotions. I'm suffering. I'm suffering. Gosh, am I gonna get emotional here? I hate life. I hate living. Like I literally, it's brutal. It's brutal. It is so brutal that I'm trying to do literally anything to make myself feel even remotely better for just freaking 30 minutes of the day because I live in a constant state of negativity and I hate it. Help me. It was so easy for someone to say, "Oh, you need to just take ownership of it." I'm taking ownership. I feel like crap. Help me. I'm drowning. How do I stop? How? I'm tapped in right now to my old emotions, how I used to feel. So, if you're angry at the person that has no self-control and is the person that is struggling with their emotions and was doing all of these crazy things, I promise you, they don't live in peace at all. If your life is good and the only problem that has been in your life was dumb, your life is fine. You're content with everything. It's just that they're so chaotic. They don't like themselves. They don't have a sense of identity. They're all over the place. But the only issue that you really have is with them. You're good. You're good. Listen to me. Listen to me. If you're the woman or the man in the position, you're fine. You're good. You're good. If the only issue in your life is dumb, literally is dumb, because they don't have a sensitive identity, they're out of control, their emotions all over the place, they're haywire. You're fine. Love your life. Forgive them. Because the fact that they live like that every day, not just with you, but it just with their job, with coworkers, with friends, they lose friends, they're all over the place, they're just a mess with their life. They're the ones that don't live in peace. They don't even know how to get it. I didn't know how to get peace. Whether my husband was in the house or not, I didn't have no peace. I needed Jesus. So I remember telling my husband, just to kind of wrap this up, I remember telling him, you know, you're just the one trying to suffer unnecessarily by hating me or being mad at me. Because I promise you, the way I feel every single day is worse than anything that you could say to me. I say it to myself 2 times worse. You know, that's why I'm here. So forgive them. You have to understand why they are the way they are or why they're going through or why they're choosing you specifically to attack. You don't have to understand it. And you could also say to yourself, I would never do that. Also, congratulations to you too if you could never do that to a person. You know how it feels to be the person that's doing that to someone? You think I wanted to do the things I have done and push? I made a video that kind of went viral. I would push sometimes him and stuff. I would get mad. I would push. Oh, I would get so irritated. Like everything in me would just boil, and I just felt like, I hate you. I genuinely, I feel nothing but hate in my heart. I don't even know why. It has nothing to do with you, but everything to do with me. And having my emotions be that extreme, oh my goodness. You think I liked anything about myself and what I was doing? Every time I react off my emotions and I went to the extreme level of like putting my hands to someone or saying some verbally abusive thing to my husband. I said someone. It was all in my relationship. Every time I did that, you don't think that I was looking at myself like he gonna leave you and he'll hire your white right too. Look at you. And that's where you start crying, you feel so guilty, you start looking back at everything you just did, you start crying, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do this. No, 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 I'm so sorry." And then it confuses the other person, confuses the victim, I don't wanna say anybody's victim, but confuses the person in the relationship with someone with BPD because 'cause they're like they see you're truly empathetic, you're truly sorry, but they're like, "Oh, why you keep hurting me? Why you keep putting your hands on me?" And that's the cycle, the vicious cycle that you're in. Or why are you treating me like this? Why are you verbally abusive, screaming at me and acting crazy and other stuff? But you cry after, you feel bad after. Yeah, because once I got triggered and I got into that state, I just acted impulsively. I didn't have any self control over my emotions. And then once that trigger, like my body's identified that I'm not in danger here and it calmed down, I sat back. I was like, wow, I just did all that. It's disgusting. So uh, you know, that's just the relationship dynamic. So I just kind of wanted to end it off with that and just state that. Okay, you guys. So with this last part, I want to read the emails that you guys have sent me. I'm going to read one email. It's kind of long. I wanted to go through it and respond to you guys. So if you have a story that you want to share, please send an email to thejadabellpodcast@gmail.com. Okay, so I'm gonna read this email. I won't say the person's name. She says, "Hi Jade, I love your podcast and it's helped me so much in settling in as the person who I want to be. I've seen no podcasts that are comparable to yours and I really appreciate the insight and advice with everything you say. You are an amazing role model." Thank you so, so much. First of all, I had to read this one because that in itself, don't hype my head up. Don't hype my head up. No, I really appreciate that because 'cause I'd be a little hard on myself sometimes. Like, when you're doing this and you're being so honest and vulnerable on a podcast, oh my goodness, the things that people will say. Like, some people are just not healed, and so they will be triggered when you're being open and talking and sharing so much about your mistakes, and so I appreciate you saying that because the whole point is that I'm trying to be as raw and open as possible to help other people. So to read that is helpful for me because then it reminds me of what I'm doing it for, you know? So, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your compliments. She says, "Me and my partner, I believe, both have undiagnosed BPD, which I've recently found becomes more prevalent when we are smoking. We just took a month break, which was his first time stopping for this long since he started smoking, but I've noticed that we are more likely to react unnecessarily to small situations or feel a type of way about something when smoking is part of our routine sometimes. Anyways, I just want to mention how hard it has both been for us to have undiagnosed BPD. Now, if I were you, I would make sure to get diagnosed. Go to a psychiatrist and actually have them evaluate you to see if you have that because like I said, there is 9 distinct traits of BPD and you have to have 5 of them to get diagnosed. And I I uh I had about 8 of them. 8 out of the 9. So I had it. I caught that thing. You know what I mean? Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was me, you know what I mean? But some people are just struggling with a couple of parts about it, like their reactions or their sensitivity. So make sure you actually get a diagnosis, and your diagnosis isn't to like label that you have that, right? Because I talk so much about how to not have it, how to work out of that, because it's due to your past environment, it's due to PTSD, it could be due to how you grew up with a narcissistic parent, could be due to your childhood, just fears of abandonment, things that you have gone through. Some people get BPD from having too many sexual partners and having had sex with too many people, and through all these different relationships you had uh gotten cheated on or abandoned in some type of way, so it could be developed through there. Um so you want to make sure that you're getting the proper diagnosis, because you could just um think you have them because you have a few traits that align with it. Um, so I wanted to mention that. I have always been a pretty sensitive person, which, when combined with anxiety, is not the best combination, especially in this context. Me and my partner both have some anger issues as well, but only through God has our relationship been able to last and keep us strong and together. Amen. I found that it's easy for me to take things personal, and once I feel disrespected or unappreciated, I feel the need to try to speak about it with my partner. Because this can happen quite often, my partner does not like to have these repetitive conversations because he feels like if I accept him for who he is, I have to have faith that he's trying to be a better person for me, and healing isn't always going to be linear. I understand this, but it's definitely harder to understand when in the moment I just want to feel seen, heard, respected, and cared for. It's very interesting because you just brought up how he doesn't like to have repetitive conversations about the same thing. A lot of men don't. I just noticed that. Like, men are problem solvers, right? So when there's a problem, they want to solve it. And the thing is, if they've come up with a solution, but you keep revisiting it and not even allowing time to go by to see if that his solution to the problem can actually address the problem and fix the problem, but you just keep revisiting it because you're living in a emotional state all the time. It's aggravating because they're not feeling like problem solvers. So I agree to that. You have to kind of stick to whatever solution you guys came up with for some time. So if you guys plan, like, we're gonna try this for this amount of time and see if this helps us, stick to it. Also helps with their testosterone. It also helps with their masculinity to feel like they're fixing something. But some things, and you'll hear about this more in the next episode, you need to go to your girlfriends about, you need to talk to your girls about to get it out, because it's so aggravating. I think it's so aggravating for a man to keep having the same discussion over and over again. I really do. I think it just plays with their head of like, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to resolve this? I can't fix a problem and you keep making it a problem. If you just want to talk about it, okay, I could try to sit here and talk about it. Most men don't. They don't want to sit there and just talk about it. So just go to your girlfriends. All to say, I don't want to ramble about that, but just go to your girlfriends. I feel the need to try to speak about it with my partner because this can happen quite often. Oh, I already said that part. It's hard to feel like he cares about me when he struggles to show remorse in these situations, but I pray for us and so that we can love each other the way we deserve to be loved. Our love language can look different, which I'm coming to understand, and we are both young, 20 and 21, so I get that everything isn't going to be perfect, not at all. I feel that when he has an episode, that it's hard for me as someone who also struggles with BPD to react in a way that is beneficial for us both sometimes, especially when it brings me back to being in a household with an angry father or brings up feelings of resentment. That's very interesting. I actually heard this study by this doctor. His name was like Todd. Dang, what was his name? Dr. Todd something. I have it down below, but he was saying that they came to find in a study that people that are in a relationship with someone with BPD, the man could have some type of personality disorder himself, some type of mental health issue himself. Whether he has like fearful avoidant attachment, they found a lot to have fearful avoidant attachment style to be in a relationship with someone with BPD, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's what's triggering the person with BPD so much. Or that them themselves have one or two or a couple of the traits that are in the BPD partner as well. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But also the fact that you guys are 20 and 21, you guys are so young, you'll grow so much. Um, and I think you guys have to have a lot of grace for each other when you're young, a lot of grace for each other because you're growing up together. And you guys were young, you guys just came out of a household. So you guys came out of some type of childhood upbringing and you don't know how it is, and then boom, you're in a relationship with someone. And there's the past 18 or 19 years that you were in the household with your parent, and now you get into this relationship, you're going to compare the relationship to your parent, the person you're with to your parent. So give each other a lot of grace and realize you guys are kind of starting over from scratch. When I have episodes, I tend, she says, when I have episodes, I tend to result in distancing myself and leaving the room, hoping that he'll come speak to me in a way that makes me feel cared for. He does come sometimes and asks why I'm mad, but I get so angry sometimes I just want him to know already. Ooh, we're gonna talk about that, girl. Or he doesn't come and that just makes me feel more alone. But when I feel ready to go back and speak, I always try to mention everything about how I'm feeling. Isn't that quite interesting how we push people away, but then we feel more alone? We didn't really want them to go. I'll never forget, my husband would say what you mean and mean what you say. I hated that he said that. But he said that all the time, and I agree to that 100% and kinda try to live by that as much as possible or just take ownership, because if you say something you don't mean it and you suffer the consequences of it, like you say, "I don't wanna be with you," and then the person leaves, well, you know, you gotta own it. Now you're mad at them because you to what? You know, you're mad at them when you told them you didn't wanna be with them and you told them to get out and they did, they followed through with what you asked them to do, and now you're mad at them that they listened to you? That don't make sense, right? So, just say what you mean and mean what you say. It's a manipulation tactic, to be honest with you. I think if we push them away and then they fight for us, it makes us feel as though we've been chosen, that and that we're loved because someone will actively fight for you, even if you say no, and you want that. Like, you wanna feel deeply loved and wanted and desired. So, it's like the fight in them, like, digging deeper for your love makes you feel loved, but that's toxic. Then it comes repetitive where you keep doing that and eventually one day they're not gonna come back. Learn that way. I learned that the hard way. So don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't learn from me or learn from me. Don't do that. Despite this and any understanding that we reach about these situations, we still find ourselves dealing with similar situations pretty frequently, and they tend to stem around the same issues, or we may overreact about something, or the other person doesn't seem to understand, or can't help the other person de escalate appropriately. Seems like two very easily triggered people. Both of you guys are pretty emotional. One of you guys need to like think more logically and practice logical thinking, to be honest with you. Two emotional people, yeah, you're just two girls in the house fighting, to be honest with you. And I don't wanna say that as if you cannot be the one that's more logical thinking in this situation, but one of you guys needs to train and teach the other person how to communicate effectively. So, what I mean by that is, like, if I'm thinking more logically and my husband's in an emotional state, it's like he's watching me not react with him, and that's what de-escalates the situation. It's just like, "Okay, I see how you're feeling. I see you're upset. I see you're mad. I'm here. It seems like you're feeling this way because of this, that. Is that true or not?" Or, you know, and I can kind of direct the conversation out of an emotional state because I'm not triggered. That also comes back to having a sense of identity. You're good with you. You also have to be quite a wise person. I also learned that the more wise I became, the more matured I became in my mind, the more I can de-escalate a situation. So the fact that you guys are 20 to 21 makes sense, right? Because you don't really know who you are yet. The more you know who you are, the more wise you become, the more skills you build, which is why people need to study, they need to learn, they need time watching videos and read some books on this stuff, on the mind and the communication. You can see the situation for what it is instead of taking it so personally. Like, this don't got nothing to do with me, it got something to do with you. So what do you need me to do? How can I help you? And if they're still kind of like throwing this fit or this tantrum in their emotions, you can say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to let you cool down. I love you. I'm here for you. I'm going to go watch some TV. Doesn't mean I don't want to be with you or I'm not here for you. It's just that I notice that you're really emotional right now. And so I'm gonna give you some time by yourself so that you can, sit through those thoughts. But I'm here, and I can't wait to revisit this conversation and talk when you're feeling a little bit better. And it's just like it's knowing that the situation doesn't have to do with me, but something that you're battling with and you're feeling triggered. But two triggered, insecure people in a relationship together is it's gonna be chaotic, right? Ooh, bars, Jada. I'm gonna end it here. I also feel that sometimes he says things that only would provoke me or just disrespectful comments either out of anger or casually. I try to remind him our words should encourage and uplift each other, but he'll take it personal when I relate it to the Bible because he'll think I'm attacking him for not being a man of God. There's that insecurity, right? That's where he's feeling insecure at, which I'm not trying to attack him, but more so remind him of principles that are important to me in a partner. Okay, but how are you phrasing that? Are you saying like you're not being a man of God, you're not being these things? It depends on how you're wording it because you could be using it in a way to belittle and to um, say this is not what you're not these things in this moment, and that can be kind of like degrading. So it depends on how you're using that, right? So if my communication looks like, "Hun," like this, like you're a man of God. I remember having to say, I would say, I'm trying to think about my communication. You the man that I know. You don't act like this or act like that. You a man of God. You be handling situations like this, and that. That's how you are. And you have to kinda, like, remind them of who they are, not tell them what they're not. Does that make sense? So, it's the way you're phrasing it. Imma just leave it off of here. She says that we still have so much love for each other and are committed to each other and both Christians, so I have faith that God will help us and that this is a part of our journey. Something deep inside me tells me that God brought us together and we belong together. I've prayed and asked God to keep us together if we're supposed to be together, and we always find a way to reach after that, reach each other after that. This relation has brought us both so much closer to God, so I truly believe that we're meant to be together. Thank you with love. And then she says her name. I won't say her name, but I hope that helps. Thank you so much for being so open and so vulnerable for my podcast. My goodness, you guys, um, please send in your stuff. I cannot wait to read them. I hope that my responses have helped somebody in some type of way. And mind you, all this knowledge just comes from practice myself and having struggled and having been, the ugliest version of myself and struggling really bad. And then God really brought me out of that. So this platform is just for God. I hope that you guys learned a lot more about self control as well. And if you're struggling in a relationship like that, I want you to clip this for them. Self control is so important when it comes to our relationship with God, not just our relationship with someone else. God needs you to have self control. And I talked about this in the last episode, but God needs you to have self control so that He can use you as a vessel. I couldn't be used as a vessel when I lacked self control because my emotions determined what I was going to say and what I was going to do. Now, because I have so much more self control and I have so much more self awareness, um, I can be used by God as a vessel and I can obey and listen to Him and go outside of my fears or my insecurities because, um, I just pray that God gives me the strength to push through and that I follow and I'm disciplined instead of following what my emotions tell me. And when I lived in that state, I was like the worst version of myself. I hate that version of myself. And I know I'm so open on this platform about how much I struggled before, but it's only to help other women. I want people to have healthy relationships. I want women to be able to have healthy relationships with themselves and with the man in their life. In order to do that, you have to gain control of your emotions, and vice versa for men. There are men struggling with their emotions too. In order to have healthy relationships, we just have to gain control over it. And we cannot take things so personally, and we cannot let our emotions dictate our actions. It ends up causing so much brokenness. Whether you following your emotions look like you cheating, your emotions lead to verbal abuse or physical abuse. Your emotions lead to you degrading and belittling. Your emotions lead you to becoming some alpha type of woman who is like, I need to feel powerful and in control at all times, whatever it's doing could be breaking your relationship and causing so much destruction. And so I want us to be able to have fulfilling and loving relationships, but we have to gain control of our emotions. And God wants us to experience loving relationships with other people too. We're here on earth to experience relationships. So don't let the enemy um, manipulate your emotions and it ends up hurting other people and yourself. I love you guys. I hope this episode was good for you guys. Love you so much. Please send an emails to thejadabellpodcast@gmail.com. Bye.